Hello, and welcome to the Come to Your Senses podcast. I'm your host, embodiment-based coach, Mary Lofgren. Here, we explore how to live bravely and beautifully through a lifestyle of embodiment. You'll hear gems to empower you around mindset, mindfulness, somatic psychology, and neuroscience, as well as beauty, food, style, and the art of slow living to meet your soul through the senses. I am so happy that you're here. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to Come to Your Senses. So glad to have you here. Last week, we shared an episode called How to Create a Lingerie Drawer You Love. And it was a very successful episode already. Just a few days into the episode, it's one of our most listened to episodes so far, which I'm so glad about. I'm so glad that my listener community shares a love, or at least a desire for a love of lingerie. And when we talk about lingerie, what we're really talking about is energy. Just like everything on the podcast and everything in life, what we're really talking about is not just the thing, but the feeling that we're seeking, that we believe that the thing will create. So if you have a lingerie drawer that you love, that brings you joy every time you open it, the feeling that you might be seeking is something like self-love and joy and delight in your own body, as well as a sense of confidence in your body and your sensuality. And so today, we are going to dive a layer deeper into that with gems that can help you to develop a sense of confidence in your body from the inside out. It's really common to have a sense of confidence about your body that might be more embedded in the mental realm, where your thoughts aren't necessarily 100% love and acceptance and delight towards your body, but you know enough about the way you've been conditioned to see your body to question those thoughts or to be irritated by those thoughts. And bravo. We're really glad for that. We're really glad for that questioning. And yet, there is a different quality of experience when there's not just the tension of thoughts colliding in the mind, but there's an actual embodied sense of scrumptiousness when you see your reflection in the mirror, or when you look down at your body, down at your hands while you're typing or while you're cooking, or when you see your legs stretched out on the couch at the end of the day. And so today's gems are going to build on whatever belief work, thought work, social justice work you've done to help to liberate yourself from white supremacist, fat-phobic, capitalist, ageist, ableist ideas about what makes a good body, and bring in some tools of the soma, or somatic, to restore your organic birthright of delight when experiencing your own body. If you've ever seen a child pull up their shirt to just look at their belly and be amused, or if you've ever seen a child nursing and grasping and just holding their mama's breast because it just feels good. When I was a kid, my signature sound was the sound of the screen door slamming shut and then bouncing on whatever that mechanism is, that like air tube that makes a door not completely slam shut all at once, that makes it like bounce off whatever. Contractors, if you're listening, you know what I'm talking about. But I loved swinging on the jungle gym and flipping upside down and climbing. And I just was a natural gymnast and acrobat as a little kid. And I would get these bursts of energy and I would just leap out the door, run and jump and swing back and forth. And it was so delightful and it was so, so natural. And my hope and desire is that these gems act as keys in the door of your own somatic consciousness to help open up new layers and new portals of possibility in your ability to delight in, believe in, and experience rapturous confidence in your beautiful, wise, gorgeous body. So where we're going to begin today is where we often begin, which is the beginning of the path of the topic that we're exploring, which today is confidence. And words, as my friend Veronica Varlow says, words are wands. Words cast a spell. And I believe that words are these prayerful incantations of the essence of what it is that we want to create or feel or experience. And so I looked up the etymology of the word confidence, and the root word is a Latin word that is confidere, which means to have full trust. Oh my God. Can we just let that bubble over us for a moment? That confidence at its essence means to have full trust. That spreads over my skin with the effervescence of carbonated water. It feels bubbly, exciting, because sometimes, for me anyway, I experience this word confidence as something that has a bit of bravado to it. You know, I think about confidence as kind of puffing out the chest and almost like an arrogance. There's an arrogance to it. But the idea that confidence, especially confidence in the body, is to simply say, I have full trust in you. Oh, I mean, I think we could just stop right there, but we won't. We'll continue into our gems. But I'm so glad that we started there, because really all of our gems today are going to be around helping to fortify and develop a trustworthy relationship between you and your body, where you can be trusting of it and where it can be trusting of you. And so the first gem is called surrounding yourself with the beauty keepers. The word beauty keeper in my personal lexicon came about a couple of years ago, where I was in Union Square in New York at the legendary Union Square Farmers Market. And I love the Union Square Farmers Market so much because you just have the best in the world. I mean, that's what I loved so much about living in New York City, is in your backyard was just the best of everything, everywhere, always. And there was this rose merchant who would come in and had a rose farm, and I selected a beautiful bouquet of gorgeous pale pink roses wrapped in parchment paper. And he said, listen, the key to caring for roses in your home is to cut them under running water. This is a priceless tip, by the way, so you might want to keep this in your consciousness, to use like a serrated blade to cut them at a rough edge under running water, so that as soon as the stem is cut, first of all, it's more porous because it's cut at a rough edge. And second of all, it never loses contact with the hydration of water. And to instantly place the stems into a vase with hot water. Doesn't have to be boiling or anything, but hot enough to where when you put your finger in it, you're like, oh, that's hot. And I've been doing that for years, and it creates the most marvelous, most magnificent unfolding of the blooms. And I was just so struck by this man's love of beauty and love of his roses that he made sure to tell me that, because he cared deeply about the treasures that he was putting in my hands. And he cared deeply about the legacy of roses and how people care for them. So he was one of the keepers of beauty in the world. And that was when I started identifying these people in my life who were keepers of the essence of beauty. And one of those keepers is my good friend, Allie Monday. I talk about her all the time on the podcast. In fact, I love her work so much. Last night, I had a dream that I was out with another famous podcaster who I've never met, but I was like, listen to me. You have to check out this woman's work. So Allie has a photography studio in Greenville, South Carolina called Lady Groove. And Allie's work is a movement of liberation through fine art nude photography of honest bodies. And I just love it so much. And Allie also has a fabulous book called Her Body, which is a catalog basically of her work, and so beautifully gives you a big lapping ladleful of the essence of Allie and what she stands for. And I recommend Allie because in our conversation today around body confidence, what I find is that if you want to have a different vision of a certain aspect of yourself or your life, it is essential to put yourself in the proximity of the visionaries. And Lady Groove is one example of a movement that is teasing out the natural and organic and honest expression of beauty in the human body, as opposed to a presentation of the body that upholds an impossible beauty standard. And so you might surround yourself with beauty keepers in your social media feed. You might start collecting some coffee table books that help you open up the aperture of your understanding of beauty when it comes to the body. You might go to a local burlesque show where you are invited to see the body through a lens of exaltation. And depending on where you go, when I would go out in New York to these more avant-garde burlesque shows, I would just leave there a different person, because what I saw on the stage wasn't prettiness. It was real beauty, which sometimes even borders on the grotesque or the ugly. But it was a kind of beauty that doesn't require any editing in order to be beautiful. Another great place to look for different kinds of images around the body being upheld as beautiful in all of its different diversity of shape, size, color, texture is actually Etsy. So there's a lot of beautiful art of different bodies on Etsy that you can purchase and curate a collection that maybe you put in your hallway, so that every time you pass through that hallway, your consciousness is getting a different subconscious imprint around what beautiful means when it comes to the body. And that kind of leads me into our next gem, which is not just taking this imprint to what you see in media and in art, but in the art that you see when you look in the mirror. So if you're a listener to this podcast, you might be familiar with a story about a ritual that I do quite often, which is called Naked Body Worship Ritual. And I'll give you the shortened version, which was one night about a decade ago. I was really in a difficult, dark place, had just separated from my husband about 2 weeks before, and was spending one of my first weekends really, truly alone for the first time in my life. And at the time, I was moving through the world as my burlesque persona, Kitty Cavalier, and wondering, gosh, here I am in the pits of despair. It's a Friday night. All my friends are out of town. What am I going to do? And I thought to myself, well, I have these students and clients in my community who look to this persona of Kitty Cavalier for inspiration in moments like this. So let me do the same. What would Kitty Cavalier be doing right now on a Friday night? And the answer was very clearly worshiping her body, warm golden oil in the reflection of an antique mirror with Persian hypnotic music playing in the background. So that's what I did. And this ritual called NBWR, or Naked Body Worship Ritual, was created and born. And that might feel like a psychological and somatic tour de France if you are not accustomed to having that visual relationship and interaction with your body, particularly naked, on a regular basis. But the reason I bring it up is because if you examine, like if we were to bring into slow motion the experience of seeing oneself or one's body in the mirror, and then just, I think of on Sesame Street as a kid, there were these short films of a ball going through one of those mazes that knocks over a set of dominoes, which kicks off a lever, which starts a gear turning, all these types of things. And that to me is a great example of like what happens in our embedded neural pathways of criticism when you might see yourself under fluorescent lights in the mirror in a dressing room. And very few individuals have ever had an experience of seeing oneself in the mirror where the objective is not to look good, but where the objective is to let yourself look. And with any kind of intentional mirror work, something I really cannot recommend enough is setting the space for your mirror experience the way you might set the space for a first time pants off, dance off date with somebody you're really interested in. So taking care to prepare extra sensual details like music and candlelight, soft fabrics, delicious beverages nearby. Not just a gorgeous, delicious oil to pour over your skin, but a gorgeous, delicious oil that's been slightly heated on the stove and poured into a beautiful container. Of course, these steps are not required, but whatever brings that extra layer of comfort and deservedness to your ritual of meeting yourself in the mirror. And as I said before, nudity is optional, and you might take this exercise and start with just your own eye contact. It can be so incredibly simple. But like with all things, often the depth of an experience that we have is directly proportionate to the level of preparation we put into creating sacred space. And so I cannot recommend highly enough putting yourself in a place of worship in order to have an experience of the sacred when you encounter your reflection in the mirror. And there's so much more I could say about naked body worship ritual, but on the podcast, we are limited in the depth to which we can go. And so if this kind of a practice, or what you imagine might come up or come out of this kind of a practice, is something you want to explore more, I would be so delighted to talk to you about working together in a coaching capacity or having you in one of my courses. And so head to schoolofsensualliving.com/coaching if you'd like to explore that further. And that is where our gems are going to end for today. I have so many gems that I want to give you on this topic. And if you'd like to dive into more gems, you can go to schoolofsensualliving.com/legends, LEGENDS, because what you'll find there is my personal Legends of Lingerie guide. It's a beautiful magazine that I compiled and put together with my team of over 15 of the most legendary, amazing pieces of lingerie that I've ever come across, and the accoutrement that can make your lingerie collection something that makes you explode with joy. But on the final page is also a collection of episodes, all of which have to do with raising your level of confidence and embodiment in how you show up and experience your body. And so there's a collection of 6 of my top episodes on this very topic. And so once again, if you go to schoolofsensualliving.com/legends, you can get a copy of that magazine for free. And that brings our episode for today to a close. It is always such a pleasure to have you here on the podcast. And I want to also encourage you, if as you listen, you think to yourself, gosh, I'd really love to hear Mary do an episode on this topic. Or if I could have a coaching session with Mary, this is what I'd bring to the session. I would love to create and curate an episode just for you. And you can go to schoolofsensualliving.com/want, WANT, and tell me about your wants for the podcast, because I would delight in hearing them. And as always, thank you so much for the honor of sitting down with you to share my own heart and my own experience around this topic and all the topics we talk about here on the podcast. And I will see you in our next episode. For coaching, classes, and community in creating a lifestyle of embodiment, head to schoolofsensualliving.com. There you'll find a free video series on how to reduce anxiety and intercept the stress response through powerful, confident body language. Head to schoolofsensualliving.com/confidence to watch your first video today.